Mass spec is a tool in our arsenal, in our toolbox to figure out what a given molecule is. Mass specs are used in airports. There's the machine when they wipe your hands to check for explosives or drugs. They put it into a little machine. The machine separates the molecules using gas chromatography and then runs a mass spec on them so that they can identify a given molecule. The schematic of the device is much like this. First, the molecules are ionized. They get an electron beam shot across them. They lose an electron, and now they're +1. If they're +2, they show up in a different portion of the spectrum, which is usually not measured. So the +1 ions are going through this path, and they bend when they go into this magnetic field. And the magnetic field can be varied. So just certain ones of certain masses will get through at any given time. And so then at a certain time, they're recording a certain mass, and that will show up as a spike on a graph. And so we get a spectrum. And it looks something like this. And each of these markings on the bottom is one atomic mass unit. So over here we have 110, 120, and we've got this big peak here, which is at 122. It's called the parent peak, and it tells us that this compound has a molecular mass of 122. So whatever this compound is, its molecular mass is 122. This little peak over here is not the parent peak. It is a subsidiary of this peak because some carbon atoms are carbon-13. It's about 1%. If you only had one carbon atom, your odds would be really small that you had a carbon-13, and this would be about 1/100th of the intensity of the height as the other. But the more carbon atoms in a molecule, the bigger this this M+1, this mass +1 unit peak will show up. And this one here is somewhere, oh, hang on a second. This one here is maybe about 1/10 as big as the other one, which would imply that it's got about maybe 10 carbons in the molecule. Now there's other peaks over here. Okay. And so when the molecule breaks apart, since it was ionized, it often breaks apart, and we get various fragments coming down the line too. And sometimes if you get really good at reading these mass specs, these help to be able to figure out this structure. So I'm going to give a summary right now of the basics, and then I'm going to go to another video where I'm going to have examples, and at that time I'll talk about specific kinds of molecules you can identify. You can find the molecular mass, which is huge, and it is possible to ID certain atoms.